Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, a shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is Sandra Wiley. Sandra, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
Thank you, Jon, and thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Sandra is our president and one of our consultants as well. And Sandra, over the last couple of years, we have certainly heard a lot about client experience. People have been talking about that for many years. Now, just over the last year or two, there has been an influx on, well, what about the employee experience? And now that topic seems to be something that every firm we go into is discussing for multiple reasons. So I want that to kind of be the focus of our conversation today, is around employee experience. So to kind of get us started, Sandra, how would you define the employee experience? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, I think this is such a great topic right now and is so important for firms and companies to really hear what it is. And so I want you to think about the experience that you have when you go into a 5-star restaurant, or the experience that you have when you go into a fast food restaurant, and how different those experiences are. And the experience starts from the time that you see the outside branding all the way through till the time you get your bill and you're eating your food and you get out of there, right? So that experience happens as a journey. So I want you to think then about going into a CPA firm and you go to work there. The experience that you start is when you start the journey of being recruited, and that journey continues through onboarding, through training, all of the different things you do, all the way through till when you leave. So when I think about the employee experience, I really want to think about that whole journey. It's not just pieces of it, it's the whole thing. And it is from the employee's point of view. So when we look at the client experience, it's from the client's point of view. This one is from the employee's point of view. And it's just everything from beginning to end, like what some people call from soup to nuts, right? Is for the whole thing. So that is what the employee experience is all about.
Yes. And that is, it's not just, right, as you were saying, it's not just during that recruiting phase, during that onboarding phase, but what does the employee experience look like for someone who has been there for 10 years, right? What is there? And so it's really, what experience are our employees having at each stage within their career here? And firms more than ever, probably, largely tied to recruiting being a very big challenge right now. Yeah. More firms than ever are putting a focus on that. So, Sandra, as you're working with firms, discussing with firms, about this, what are some steps firms can take to really start to get their arms around this? And ultimately, we all want to create a great employee experience. So what thoughts do you have there?
I would first and foremost tell any leader in your firm, just take a deep breath and understand that you're probably doing some things really well, but you're also, there's always things you can do to be better, right? Everything you do is continuous improvement. This is one of those things. This project is most likely like a process improvement project. It's taking everything that you do today and all the steps along the way and plotting them out and saying, here's all the things that we're doing that are really, really great. And then you start looking for what I call the clinks in the armor, right? Where are there little chips, or where are there little things that we could have done to make it even better? And again, getting the employees to tell you what those things are. I think that's one of the most important pieces. If you, in a silo, as a leader in talent or a leader in the firm, go into your little bubble and go, well, we'll figure it out. I just don't think it'll be ever as good as if you get employees to tell you how they're feeling and get them in their particular stages of the journey. So when we look at the journey, we look at, recruiting and onboarding and development and retention and transition. And, we put them all up on the board. Ask employees at those junctures of their journey, what could we be doing better now? What's missing for you? And what are we doing great that we want to keep? And what are we doing or what are we not doing that we should be doing? And so I think that is super important to make sure that you're doing that. And you can do that by doing some maybe one-on-ones or some group interviews, some roundtables. I also would tell you, and it's unfortunate, but in most companies, most firms, they're not going to tell you what they're thinking, but they will tell their best friend or they will tell an outside facilitator, which is always super interesting. Happens at Boomer Consulting too. So that's just, maybe it's just human nature, but I think that's where a good facilitator would be really important. So I think that that's a good way to, the kind of steps to getting started. I think, and I don't know, Jon, you and I both do this together a lot. So is there anything else that you can think of that maybe I have not touched on there?
No, I think you really highlighted kind of those core steps and those ideas. One question, though, I kind of want to throw at you here off the cuff is I was talking to a partner of a firm the other day around this topic, and his response or one of his comments related to this topic was, well, for us, it was sink or swim. It was, they just need to, pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just kind of jump in the water here and they'll figure it out. And all this talk around employee experience. And, we didn't have that when we were coming up, in the firm. Why do we need to focus on it today? What would you say as you just laid out some really good steps, but I think you and I both hear those types of comments as well. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
I first thing I would tell him is, I get it. I totally understand what you're saying. Totally understand. But life has changed. The world has changed. People have changed, and for the better, I would tell you. So the way that we did it worked for us because that's all we knew at the time. And so we had to make it work. Today, we know better, so we can do better. And today, in doing better, we can create a better experience for these wonderful people that are growing up in our firms. And I would also tell that person, you can go ahead and try to do it the way you've always done it before. And you can try to go back to 1960 or 70 and do it that way. But understand that your turnover rate may be ridiculously high because the person down the street is not going to do it that way. And every company out there, private companies, are not doing it that way. And they are getting all kinds of people coming their way. If you want to be the magnet that attracts great talent, then you got to change how you get that talent and how you treat them once they get there. So I guess that's what I might say to him.
Yeah, that's great. And, kind of related to that, you started to get into some of the benefits, here's what you're going to get when you do focus on that employee experience and start to create a intentional, great experience for your employees. You're going to receive some benefits. And you just started to highlight some of those around winning the talent war and becoming a magnet for those recruits that you want. But in addition to that, firms that have put a focus in this area, what other types of results are you seeing them experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy one to talk about is higher retention rates. And we want that. This whole, whatever you want to call it, great resignation, great retention, whatever you want to call it, people are losing people at a higher rate today than they were even 2 years ago. So we know that if you create a better experience, you'll have higher retention rates. Higher employee satisfaction. People will talk about you. The best marketing you'll ever get is if your employees love you and they talk about you to all their friends. So I think you're going to get better employee satisfaction, more satisfaction at each step of the way. One of the things we know about accounting firms is the dropout rate in a public accounting firm in the years from like about 3 years to about 5 or 6 years is huge. They're leaving in droves at that time. If we can find a way to re-engage them and help them see that this is a career path that they want to take, then satisfaction at that stage in the journey is a big one. And I think that's important. Your employees will grow faster, all of that. But I also will tell you, from a leadership standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, your profit and your revenue will follow your retention rates and your satisfaction rates. So as satisfaction goes up, as employees are happier, then guess what? your profit and your income are going to go up too. That's something we can all get behind. I mean, that helps run the firm. So those are just a few of the great benefits from doing something like this for your client or for your employees.
Yep, that's great. And kind of in the intro of this podcast, we were talking about how client experience has been discussed for a while. Now it's employee experience. And what we're seeing and what firms are learning and what we're teaching is client experience and employee experience are not at odds with one another. Most often, what's best for the client results in a better experience for the employee. And so, how do you create kind of a dual strategy that has client experience and employee experience in lockstep with one another, because they both accelerate each other? So, Sandra, one question we always love to ask on this podcast is, what's this topic? How does this topic relate to outside the profession? Okay, because sometimes we're guilty of only looking within our walls of our profession, looking at maybe other firms, but really we're operating in a global economy. And so any thoughts on how this topic is relevant to outside the profession?
I oftentimes will say to our clients, I know you think you're special, but you're not. And I don't mean that. I mean, I think our clients are very special, but the reality is what's happening in the accounting profession is happening in all professions. And the reason that some professions are having a better, outcome of employee retention is because they have already started putting some of their major focus on employee experience. I think that we can do the same thing. We can be every bit as competitive as any other company out there if we put our emphasis on the right thing. So I think that their experience is the same thing we are. I think this employee experience is for everyone, every company out there, not just our profession. So
yeah, I agree with you. And in some ways, I think our profession has created some of the challenges that we're facing in terms of retaining talent, attracting people to the profession, because maybe we have thought we were insulated from the global economy or the global talent war going on. And in reality, we are not. And so I love your advice there, because I think it will start to open up firms' minds of how they're truly entrenched in something larger than maybe they've realized.
Yeah, I agreed.
So in terms of kind of next steps, hopefully our listeners here are thinking, you know what, we do need to, if we're not already, we really do need to put some effort, some focus, some intention around the employee experience. What are the first or second step someone could take to really start moving this forward in their firm?
The first thing I would tell you is talk about the employee experience with your leadership team. And I think it's a good idea to, if you want to get the big picture and you want to really paint that strong picture for your leadership team, have one of us at Boomer Consulting get on the phone with you for an hour or so with your leadership team and talk about the benefits and why this is so important. So I would say that's a great way to start. Then gain that buy-in, because once you have buy-in from the leadership team, you will absolutely be able to make progress faster than you ever thought was possible. And then consider that facilitator to help go through that process of what that employee journey looks like, how to have those conversations with your employees, and then how to make it better. So I would, I do believe that this particular service and this particular event really does take an outside facilitator to make it work well. I think it's a great try to do it internally. I think it's just really super hard. So that's what I would tell you. That's what I would tell anybody.
That's great advice, using that outside facilitator for that. And Sandra, you and I both know, in terms of leading initiatives here at Boomer Consulting or helping firms lead other initiatives, there are some topics, some initiatives that they're really hard to pull ideas from people. People aren't really engaging in this topic, or they're really not providing that feedback. I think you and I would agree employee experience is one where there's going to be no shortage. If you provide the framework, the context, the intention, your employees will tell you
Yep.
the opportunities you have. And so it's not like pulling teeth. It's such a great opportunity
Yep.
to focus on this topic. And so, all right, well, Sandra, that leads us to the conclusion of this episode. As always, thank you for joining me. I know people can find you on LinkedIn. People can find you on boomer.com, Sandra.Wiley at boomer.com, as well as your email address. So if you're listening here and do want to hop on a phone call to have a conversation with Sandra, feel free to reach out to her. She will respond very quickly and be excited to speak with you about that. For our listeners, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. So if you enjoyed Sandra and I's conversation, just know we release new conversations every Tuesday morning. This week, it was on talent. Next week, it might be on technology or process, growth, leadership, things of that sort. But the common thread among all those topics is that we believe they're critical to the future of your firm and to your firm's success. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, Sandra.
Thanks, John. Everybody have a great day.